I have received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan.
Reporters rush out to relay the news to an anxious world and touch off celebrations throughout the country. Washington is jubilant, and in Chicago, more than 1 million sing and dance.
September 2nd, 1945. Japan officially surrenders to the United States. World War II is over. The world is finally at peace. But not for long. As tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union begin to rise sharply, things soon turned into democracy versus communism. NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. Blue versus red. While foreign policies became more and more hostile, things at home in the U.S. were no better. With the fear of an imminent nuclear holocaust, Soviets and Americans alike developed a deep and vicious distaste for one another. The fear and strong hatred of communism quickly ballooned into a national American mood. The second Red Scare had begun.
So that an American president can tell Nikita Khrushchev, "You are wrong. Our children will not live under communism. Your children will live under freedom."
People began seeing red everywhere, in the media, the government, and the public. After the execution of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, a couple accused of passing nuclear secrets to the Soviets, people searched for someone to take a hard stance against communism and do everything in his power to stop the red spread. This leads us to Joseph Raymond McCarthy, born November 14, 1908 in Wisconsin to an Irish mother and father. He dropped out of high school at age 14 to help manage their family farm. At age 21, he began studying engineering and law at Marquette University, eventually earning a law degree. His first shot at a political career failed when he ran for district attorney of Shawano, Wisconsin in 1936. He ran as a Democrat. At this time, McCarthy was an avid gambler and made quite a money gambling on the side while working for a law firm. McCarthy's judicial career attracted some controversy due to the speed with which he dispatched many of his cases. He had inherited a lot of unfinished cases by his predecessor. At times, he compensated for his lack of experience by demanding and relying heavily upon precise briefs from the contesting attorneys. The Wisconsin Supreme Court reversed a relatively low percentage of the cases he heard. From 1942 to 1944, McCarthy served in the U.S. Marines as an intelligence briefing officer for a bombing squadron. He flew several missions as a gunner, earning himself the nickname Tail Gunner Joe. He reportedly joined the Marines so as to benefit himself most for his political future. In 1944, while still on active duty, McCarthy campaigned for the Republican Senate nomination in Wisconsin, but promptly lost to Alexander Wiley. In 1946, McCarthy launched a much more intense campaign, grilling his rival and three-term veteran Robert Lafayette of the Progressive Party for not serving in the military. He joined Senator Wiley in Washington after winning over 60% of the popular vote under the slogan, "Congress needs a tail gunner." And that is where things kicked off.
One communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many. One communist among the American advisors at Yalta was one communist too many. Even if there were only one communist in the State Department, even if there were only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
Until 1950, McCarthy remained quiet, voting with fellow Republicans on many bills, and maintaining a relatively high approval rating, after being endorsed by fellow Catholic and anti-communist John F. Kennedy. But come February 9, 1950, the junior senator from Wisconsin shocked the nation. He delivered a speech in Wheeling, West Virginia at the local Republicans Women Club, claiming that he had a list of 205 communists who worked in the State Department.
My recollection was that in this now famous 2¼ page document, there were about 35 names listed. This is pretty serious. Have we had anything as serious as this so far?
Oh yes, I think we've got something much more serious right now.
This accusation received huge media attention. This led to McCarthy's quick fame, and within a month, the Washington Post coined the term McCarthyism, the practice of making accusations of disloyalty, subversion, or treason without proper regard for evidence. In the end, not one communist was found. McCarthy was deeply anti-democratic, criticizing Truman, his administration, and going so far as to say the Democrats were communist sympathizers.
There are definitely two groups of Democrats as of today. Number one, there are the millions of loyal Americans who have voted the Democrat ticket. On the other hand, there is that small, closely knit group of administration Democrats who are now the complete prisoners and under the complete domination of the bureaucratic, communistic Frankenstein which they themselves have created. To call them Democrats is an insult to the millions of loyal American Democrats. They shouldn't be called Democrats. They should be referred to properly as the Commie-Crap Party.
Needless to say, things only heated up after the Wheeling speech. In 1952, McCarthy was re-elected with a slimmer margin of 54%. After his failure with the State Department accusations, McCarthy began seeing red everywhere. Finally, in 1953, he crossed the line. McCarthy had accused the Army of housing communists and being communist sympathizers.
Get that communist Joe. Get that small Joe.
McCarthy had been popular during the Truman administration when the Democrats were in power. Yet, as Eisenhower took power, his popularity began to wane. McCarthy kept attacking his opponents, marking them as sympathizers of the communists. His deceit, corruption, and lies kept going on. With his drop in popularity came desperation. Joseph McCarthy was now desperate to get someone locked up for being a communist. In the fall of 1953, McCarthy's committee began its ill-fated investigations into the United States Army. This began with McCarthy opening an investigation into the Army Signal Corps laboratory at Fort Monmouth. Nothing came of it, though, as there was nothing found there indicating any sort of communist sympathies. With still no warrant to continue his investigations, he turned his attention to specific individuals. McCarthy first investigated Irving Perez. Perez was a dentist who had been drafted into the Army and had quickly been promoted to major. Questioning of his communist nature came through his involvement in the left-wing Labor Party. Under investigation from McCarthy, Perez declined to answer any questions by pleading the Fifth Amendment. As an effect, Perez was to be given an honorable discharge in 90 days. However, Perez wanted out right away, so his commanding officer, Brigadier General Ralph W. Zwicker, helped him leave the Army so that no such charges from McCarthy could come upon him. Because Zwicker had helped Perez get out of trouble, McCarthy now had his eyes on him. McCarthy had him come into the investigation subcommittee and was questioned. McCarthy had been made head of the Senate Committee on Government Operations during his second term as senator. The Committee on Government Operations did investigations in order to discover communists. Due to the Army's influence on him, Zwicker refused to answer any of the questions that the subcommittee gave to him. He even changed his story 3 times with regards to Irving Perez, and why Perez hadn't answered questions as well. With nothing coming out of Zwicker, McCarthy got extremely angered and frustrated and turned his contempt into insults. McCarthy began insulting Zwicker's competence, saying that Zwicker had the mind of a 5-year-old and couldn't be in the Army with the limited intelligence that he had. Zwicker was a famous World War II general, and, in turn, outrage spread among the media and the government alike, including Eisenhower himself. The Army then prohibited McCarthy and the subcommittee from questioning Zwicker further. These investigations were only a precursor of what was to come next.
But I submit that any sincere person would have concluded from a review of the record that it does not offer the slightest iota of proof that I have an unusual affinity for communist causes. I therefore conclude that Senator McCarthy's charges and insinuations are not only false, but utterly irresponsible, and under the circumstances reveal a shocking disregard for the interests of our country.
One of McCarthy's former investigators, David Schein, had been drafted into